Hi everyone, my name is Rennie and I'm here with Greenwich Pottery doing some remote Zoom demonstrations. This recording is part of a larger demo series where I hand build a watering can. This portion we're going to go over how I do the spout. So if you skipped the previous parts, I go over how to stretch a slab and how to build a cylinder and do some darting on that cylinder. Right now I've got a small slab right next to my piece, and I'm going to go over how I'm going to make a spout for that piece. But basically, to fill you in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece of clay that is almost like a pizza slice, and depending on how narrow or how wide I make that slice, it's going to change the shape of my spout, either wider or more narrow. I'm going to roll that piece up, carefully smooth out the seam, kind of bend it a little bit, and we'll have a spout. You can take a look here. I'll just stretch out that slab a little bit more. This will be broken up into a spout demo. I'm doing this all outdoors on a picnic bench next to a river. So that's where the sound's coming from. It's the only nice bench I could find near where I'm staying. Stretch that out a little bit more now that I've got the shape cut out. And what I'll do next is I'll start to bevel some of these edges. So I'm doing a light little pressing on the tip there to give that more of a graceful pouring angle rather than sort of like a blunt edge. And then I'm just kind of pinching out this side here, going down the edge of that spout to create two 45-degree angles that when they roll over and meet, I can smooth them out. So I'll flip it and I'll do the same thing on the opposite side. You can tell I'm real casual in how I pretty much build everything. I don't do a lot of measuring. I don't use a lot of tools. I use a fork and a knife in my hands. Now I'm just kind of carefully rolling up that piece of clay. It is a sculpture clay. It does crack a little bit. It's not the best for what I'm doing, but it's working. So I kind of line that up and then I give it a roll up on the table so I can at least get those edges to overlap and kind of get some compression going there. And then I'm just really carefully trying to go down that spout and make sure that I'm really getting those two sides attached. I didn't even score there or use any water. The clay is really wet, and I'm really going to rely on smoothing it out and compressing it. I don't have any ribs or tools with me. I'm just using the back end of my knife to smooth that out. And then you can kind of just bend that spout to different angles. I always make my spout much longer than I need so I can cut down. Just really compress that. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to change the way the spout looks by cutting it at a 45-degree angle, changing the direction of one side, and putting it back together. So that'll make more sense in just a second. I'm just kind of making some marks, figuring out where that cut needs to go. But I think it'll go something like that. And I normally do the cut on one side. It's kind of awkward, but I pry the spout open and then I cut the other side. You see that? So I do that cut from the inside. Because for me, what happens if I just try and go all the way around the spout in one go, my lines never meet up. This is not a perfect system. You will probably have some better luck than I do in this demo if you let your pieces dry up a little bit. But this works pretty well. So this spout, the clay is it's wet. The slab's pretty thin. So this is kind of delicate process putting it together. I'm not adding any water. I'm not even scoring. I don't want to mess it up anymore on that seam where it is. I'm going to smush it together. We do need to try and get some compression though on that seam from both the inside and the outside. So I might try and get a tool back there, my finger back there, so I can support that seam. See, it's really wet. The clay is kind of bending around. I'll cut this down. And there you have the spout. So I'll then be trying to cut a hole to fit this, and then cutting it down even more. So right now it's a little too big, too far out, but the way that I'm gonna lay this in there is I'm gonna cut a hole and I'm gonna insert that into that hole. Rather than going directly against the piece. So I want to cut my hole just a little bit smaller than the line I drew. And then I'll check and see if it'll fit and work my way up to that right size. It's better to be too small than too big. And I'm just seeing if that'll insert in there. I think it needs to be a little bit bigger. Cut out just a little bit more. And set that in there. This can be a little bit awkward. So I'm setting that in there, and then I can remove material on the inside to the right, kind of length. And then I can really smooth that piece out on the inside and the outside. And there you have a spout. Thanks for joining.